Maybe I brought some friends with me.
Today we are in the Dallas. The internet's kind of on what's going on today. That Mr. Roberts, how you doing today?
Doing really well. How about you?
Oh, can't hear me. So I'm not too bad. Hey, I don't know what's going on with this internet, but it is crazy. You know, it's I don't understand it. I was having problems with it. Been trying to call the internet provider, and it's just air. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, Miss Jenny, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good. Okay. So now, so we're just gonna bear with it. Hopefully, it pans itself out. And Mr. Robert, man, you sent me some very interesting videos. Tell me a little bit about those, man.
Well, the first one was that I sent you was Paranormal Declassified. It's on Discovery Plus. I worked for the Travel Channel, specifically for a production company called STX. Done YouTube and stuff, but I don't do it, to get famous or anything. If you're doing it to get the fame and money, you're doing the wrong thing in this, So I've always wanted to help people, and I went through something pretty terrifying back in '98. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't in my head. So, I just went out, and I wasn't trying to prove anything at all. And it just, in 2013 or 2014, I was in Calvert, Texas, and I was standing in the front door. And when I turned around, this wasn't a shadow figure that you see on the wall. This thing was 3D. It was standing right behind me. It had, what a balaclava is that a motorcyclist wears when it's cold, to keep the cold out. Well, this thing had a little bit larger head on it, and all black, but it did not have any eyes, nose, or mouth. But my first thought was, who came back in? Because everybody had went down to investigate a cemetery and stuff. So I just thought that this was another person.
Wow.
And as soon as it crossed my mind that it was some type of spirit, it's kind of like I Dream of Jeannie. That thing just got sucked up into a little small area and disappeared. And I went, I'm one of those that I talk to the TV if I'm watching one of those, ghost investigation shows, and I'm like, why are you running after it? Are you an idiot? And I did the same thing. I ran through the kitchen doors to, head it off. Nothing was there. So that's when I was like, okay, this is a calling. It took me about 2 weeks to figure out, to sort everything out. So I'm thinking, though, that the kind of nightmares that I have now, that it wasn't actually a demon, but it was maybe a damn soul, and possibly a motorcycle rider, that
Mhm.
got killed somewhere on that street, because everything else fit.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so that's kind of how I got into this.
That sounds terrifying.
Okay, cool. I tell you what,
Uh,
I bet this kid.
well, in the moment, it wasn't terrifying. I was more confused than anything. But the night before, I had set up two, they call them proximity devices. When you come close to it and you break the EM field, it goes off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had shut the door to this, it was a nursing home, or abandoned nursing home. And I pointed a motion detector at the door, because you never know, who's walking around or whatever that's going to walk in. And the thought had crossed my mind that if it was something more of a physical, then I would, at least know the presence was there. Well, the first device went off 2:30, 3 o'clock, the quote unquote witching hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my motion detector didn't go off. So I was thinking, okay, I don't know, maybe it was some kind of anomaly. And I just went back to sleep. Um, and maybe an hour or so later, both of them went off. And it was only in the morning when I was packing my stuff up that I went to pack up the motion
Mm-hmm.
detector, and the
Mm-hmm.
batteries had been popped out of it. And it had a really hard backing to it. So I just don't understand how that happened.
All right. Can you guys hear me better now?
Yes, and
Yeah.
you're not glitching.
Ah, okay. I had to switch over from my phone. Sorry about that. Well, hey, you know what, guys? Yeah, it's something about that internet. Sorry about that, Robert. You know what, dude? Can you tell me what age that you was, that you experienced this?
Um. Uh. You're talking about what I encountered in Calvert at the
Yeah,
nursing home.
yeah.
Well, I started out in about 2000. I went with Metroplex Paranormal Investigations just to tag along, and it developed from there. But this happened in 2013. So was it 7, 8, 9? So I was about 48 years
Oh,
old. Yeah.
okay.
So
Wow, it seems like you've been doing this a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
a little bit,
Okay.
little bit.
Uh, so now, how many members you have on your team? Is it just you, or do you have other members?
No, I I'm usually called in through other groups that don't handle demonic cases. They just don't feel safe, or as in Paranormal Declassified.
Right.
Uh, I was called in to kind of if somebody got an attachment, which if you notice, the guy did get scratched, and he was on camera for about uh, a total of 6 hours. So about 3 hours before that happened, he was totally on camera. So there was no
Right.
way he could have scratched it and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Uh, but yeah, so since about 2000, I've been doing that. And uh, I work, oddly enough, and it sounds like the beginning of a joke, but I work with a priest, and I'm an ordained minister. I'm more Protestant, but I've seen the sacraments work as far as holy water,
Mm-hmm.
exorcism, all that. So I have no doubt, that that's working. And also, I was baptized Catholic when I was young. So, I've always had religion there of some form or another. And just more like religious instruction, things of that nature. But, I was telling you in 98, I had moved in with a roommate, and the house didn't have an interior door, nothing. It only had the front door and the back door. Even the bathroom door was taken off. So, I've always wondered, maybe they were slamming or something crazy.
Right.
And my roommate's 2 dogs and cat would go right up to the threshold of the bedroom, would not step a foot in there, and then run around to the other side and stop at the threshold on the other side. I had intense feelings of being watched, and it got so bad that I took aluminum foil, and I put it over the windows, and I still felt that way. So I thought somebody was peeking in. So I put a blanket over the entire window. But it's like the more I tried to ignore it, the more it started coming up. The TV would come on and off, and the remote was in sight. But what finally drove me to leave was the foot of my bed would pick up and drop. I don't want to say levitate, but it would pick up and drop. And the first time I thought it was probably a muscle spasm or something, just wrote it off.
Right.
Second time I was kind of hazy or whatever, but again, don't jump to conclusions. But the third time I was absolutely awake. And that's when I was like, no. And I got out of there and I moved all the way to Houston. Yeah, it really bothered me.
Oh, wow. Hey, Robert, how often do your phone rings now for you to, for your calling, for you to come help people?
Probably 3 or 4 times a month.
Okay, so
yeah.
So it's not really a consistent thing where they're calling you 3 or 4 times a week.
No, and the priest I was telling you about, he does everything online. And a lot of people don't believe in that. They don't believe that can work. But if you go back to the New Testament where it talks about centurion came up to Jesus, and said, my servant is sick, will you heal her? And Jesus said, well, take me to her. And he goes, no. He said, I have soldiers underneath me, and I know that if I give them an order, that it will be carried out. He said, all you have to do is say the word. And scripture talks about Jesus marveled at his faith, and said, go, your servant's been healed. So I believe long distance exorcism can happen. I am just not able to do that. It takes a lot of visualization. I've only done 14 exorcisms, but I've probably done anywhere from 60 to 100 house blessings, investigations, things like that.
Wow. Now, have you met a gentleman named Scott Perry that's up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area also?
We're not close friends or anything, but I believe I've heard the name.
You heard me. Man, I would love to get you two guys on the podcast together. I think that would be a very interesting conversation between the two of you, because he's pretty much, does the same thing that you do. But the difference is he has that, like you said, you're not able to do that over the phone. He's actually able to do that.
Yeah.
And helped numerous of people just by speaking to him over the phone and able to get rid of her, to get whatever the problem is. I mean, this guy is really amazing at what he does. So one day in the future, I would love to get both of y'all together. Jenny, you have any questions for Mr. Robert?
Mr. Martin.
Please call me.
I didn't hear that. What?
Please call me Robert.
Okay. Robert, was the encounter with the one in the nursing home as you were speaking, was that your first encounter, or what brought you to that?
Well, so, for about 13 years before that, I did, paranormal investigations. I remember the first time I encountered something was at a funeral home in Dallas. And that was with MPI investigations as well. And I've, there's a house in Mineral Wells that the previous owner, I used to go out there and investigate a lot. And you're familiar with an SLS camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Stick figures. So I had taken that in there, and I actually had something come out of the closet and kind of shimmy up the wall. But that wasn't the first time. The most bizarre one that I've ever had was in South Fort Worth. And there was a lady there she's from England.
Mm-hmm.
And she had some surgeries or whatever, and she was recovering on the couch. Well, I was taking this SLS camera around, and all of a sudden I noticed that there was a stick figure within the lamp.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
we tried to debunk that every which way. We moved the table, we turned the lamp on, off, we unplugged it, and this thing would, the stick figure would come out of the lamp, kind of land on the table, and then stretch out over the floor, and then go right back into the lamp, and then come back over the wall. It was, and I actually have the, I had put that up on YouTube. It's very gritty. I don't know how to really edit anything, so I just record what I see. So I just stuck that on there to save it for later. So it's very crazy video, and I'm under Robert Martin on there, but I think it's Robert Martin Paranormal Investigations of Dfw. There's another reverend named Robert Martin, and no relations, not me.
Okay. Now you said you were a ordained minister.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into the religion aspect of the paranormal. Why do you think certain religions oppose paranormal investigators and just the paranormal in general? Because I know the Catholic Church back in the 16 and 1700s would definitely, if a case would pop up, they would definitely send somebody out to investigate that case. The same way that we do it today. Only difference is we have vehicles and they have horses. You know what I'm saying? But they would definitely do that, and then the investigator would come back and report what was going on, if it was fake or if he handled it. Why do you think the Catholic Church today is so upside down about it now compared to it where it was 100, maybe 200 years ago?
So I was accepted to it's the Vatican College. It's the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum. Big name for just a college where you go and you spend 5 days studying how to identify demonic activity, or diabolical anyways, and some of the things as far as the liturgy, going through that, but I was accepted right when COVID hit and Italy shut down, so there was no going on. They had it online, and they give you a red book that for, I guess, for future reference. But you know, all major religions believe in spirit possession of some type. The only uh, ones that I know that don't ascribe to that is probably Southern Baptists. Their ideology is that once you're saved, always saved. You know, and you know there's no demonic influence, which uh, I'm going to get crucified for saying that probably, but it's totally not true. It does.
Exactly.
And so I had studied through the International School of Exorcism, which is run by Dr. Bob Larson. And for about a year, I apprenticed under him. And there's another deliverance minister, exorcist, if you will, named Adrian Kirby, that does DFW deliverance. And they've got a really strong organization through that. But they are of the belief that, well, and circumstances permitting, you know, you don't want to do an exorcism on unholy ground. You know, you want to bless it. It needs to be sacred. You know, that's why I've only done 14 exorcisms. Is I don't just pop these out, you know, like pastries. You know, that's just not the way to go. And I think the Catholic Church is very wise as far as they're very covert. I've actually been asked to do 2 cases through them, and really just to investigate to see if the guy was um, uh, on the up and up, so to speak. And that's a crazy case that it happened in Sugarland, and the a lot of information came together, but basically this couple, their son had broken up with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend's mom took that as a personal insult. So she hired, she went into brujeria, and more like santeria, which, you know, it deals with evil spirits and stuff. And so she took something of his, like hair or, you know, fingernails or something. She wrote his name on the paper, had a photograph of him, and she burned it in a bowl, and then fed it to a pig. And once the pig ate it, they disemboweled it and collected the blood. And then the way I understand it, they went to a cemetery, you know, the full moon, you know, all that crazy stuff. But it was very real. And I can send you pictures that one of my investigators had taken. And so this priest was walking into another room, and he was, you know, using, it's called a thurible, you know, that puts out the incense.
Mm-hmm.
And he was incensing the entire house. And when he walked in this one room, I could see him just through the hallway, and he grabbed his cheek and said, you know, something just slapped me. And had taken a photograph of his back, and you can only see about a foot below the ceiling, and from then all the way down it was totally black. And I went in, I got into some editing software, and I lightened up the darkness, and inside it is a light anomaly, which was very interesting to me. And I think that kind of says that that was kind of energy, you know, that investing around there. It's very uh,
That's you know what, that sounds like some kind of form of voodoo. That if I'm right.
Sounds
uh,
terrifying.
yeah. Well, this was to do because uh, although voodoo practitioners allow spirits to enter them, it's uh, I guess you know use anything in a negative way. They have what they call gree bags. Uh, little pouch that they put certain herbs and stuff in, and it's supposed to ward off witchcraft, which some people call that white magic or witchcraft. I just call it straight up witchcraft. And then as far as like the Santeria, that's where you're like summoning dark entities and you're doing these Faustian deals. And I've done quite a few cases of actual curses. There's two types of curses. There's implicit and explicit. An implicit is like if they curse the land, like let's say the Native Americans curse the land, like you see Utes and the Navajo, I believe it was, and so that's implied. If you got on that property, it was implied that you would have that curse on you. Now, explicit is where someone actually speaks it out loud. And it could be, go to hell or something along those lines. And we take words for granted nowadays, but there's something in that spoken word. The breath of life, that I think when it talks about, us being made in the image of God, we can bring something forth, just by speaking it, as far as hate, hate leads to murder. So, there's just several things with that.
Yeah. Hey, maybe you can answer this question for me. Why do you think people are using this, particular practice more often now? I mean, it's kind of crazy how you would use this to hurt somebody. I mean, because in my day, it was hardly ever, used. But now in this this day and age, people are using certain practices, to hurt people, like you were saying, to put some kind of voodoo or somebody. Why do you think people are doing this more often now?
Well, I think it's a few reasons. We live in an uncertain world and uncertain times now, and people like to have or like to think they have control of a situation. Then you just have petty human beings, that have nothing better to do than to place these curses on people. And they think that once they say that, it's just going to go out there into the ether and, snatch up whoever they said it over. But the thing is, the cases I've done on curses, we actually send that curse back. We bind it, we break the chains and fetters, and then we send it back to whoever had sent it in the first place. So, and then also too, like I'll ask for what I call recompense, sevenfold. So in other words, if something diabolical had attached to this person and was keeping them from their destiny, which is how we basically say it, then I would ask for. There's several things when you're interrogating a spirit that you want to do. You want to make sure that it doesn't have any right to be in the body, and if it says that it has a right, then you kind of bring that person up. You have them renounce it, and they have to say that, you can pray over someone all day long, and until they get that in their head and realize that the true power comes from within themselves, it doesn't quite work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, dude, I would love to have you on my team, man.
Yeah.
I would definitely love to have you on. So, hey, anytime you're in the Austin area, dude, please look us up.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
We
That would
definitely
be
need to
cool.
hang. Yeah, that would be. Mr. Robert France, if you have any questions, it's weird because y'all both got the same first name. For Mr. Robert on the show, feel free to drop a comment, or you actually are allowed to come on the show and ask this gentleman a comment personally. Mind you, let your comments be 3 to 5 minutes, no longer than that. So if you want to ask this gentleman a question, just pop on into the guest, and I will let you in to ask this gentleman a question.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, we're going to keep on going here with Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert is from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's an ordained minister. And he seemed like he's got his stuff together and he knows what exactly he's doing. So if you guys are listening and you trying to practice unknown things you never done before, just to say I've done it. Hey, listen to this guy. He's recommending you guys don't do it. You know what I'm saying? but with enough said, Miss Jenny, lead the show.
Okay, well, it seems like you've been doing this for a long time, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And at any point in the timeline that you have done this, have you been just petrified where you don't want to move anywhere because you're afraid of this spiritual being, or the spirit that you're interrogating?
Well, so my belief is when I am performing an exorcism that I am protected,
Mm-hmm.
Being a minister of Christ and of God. So, that doesn't quite figure into it. There is a physical aspect of it. The very first exorcism I ever did was on a gentleman down in San Antonio, and you just have to see their face to know what I'm talking about. But his eyes got fixed; they got very glassy, and then he started kind of falling asleep. But it's like he didn't know what his right hand was doing. I had strapped him down because this guy was, maybe a foot taller than me. I'm only 5'7". And he was just a stout gentleman. And he was just wringing my straps and stuff. And the things that he said, and I've talked to another minister that is said that they've told him the same thing, but this gentleman, I usually interview them first to see if there's it's called exorcism and prayers of liberation. You don't have to do an exorcism every time. So a lot of it sometimes is just prayers, and I would meet with the people usually the day before, especially if I have to drive out of town. And I met with this gentleman, and he was sitting on the couch, and he leaned forward, he cocked his head to one side and looked at me, and he said, "You leave now and we'll make you rich and famous."
Oh, wow.
And, I without hesitating, I was like, I don't make deals with the devil. And during the exorcism, I don't know what language he was speaking. That's one of the signs of a true diabolical case. But he would kind of go in and out, and he would say stuff like, "I'm going to go in there and grab that tennis racket, and I'm going to beat this." I guess he was trying to point to himself or something. "I'm going to beat this guy up one side and down the other. When I get done with him, I'm going to do you too." And then kind of the climax of this whole dance was, they said, "Look, we're telling you for the last time, you stop this and you leave, or else we're gonna." I think it was, we're gonna make you fall asleep and drive off the road. Um, a lot of times what the demonic does is they'll take a small kernel of truth and they'll wrap it in lies, so that you don't really know what it is. Well, I can tell you that that day I probably had about 6 or 7 cups of coffee on the way back to Fort Worth, and it was just it was crazy, but it's rewarding to see people that are liberated in that.
Wow. Robert, can you tell what is your procedure when you're blessing a home? Because I've heard so many different ways on people on how a home is blessed to get rid of whatever is in there. What is your particular way that you would do that?
Okay. Well, first of all, you want to find out where the infestation is. And the knocking, the bangs, things of that nature. And you want to save that room for last, because the last thing you want to do is go in there and whip this thing up into a frenzy and then chase it all around the house. So you save that for last, and that's your big battle that you're working up to. And also it kind of builds confidence in you when you say these prayers over and over. So typically what I'll do is I will start with the incense pretty much in the center of the house. And I work through all the rooms. I'm very methodical about having that, because the incense that I use, I don't use white sage. And just the reason being is that it's been burned before to kind of worship other deities. That's one of the reasons, that we use frankincense and myrrh, and also some Palo Santo. I use something called pontifical incense. But the main thing that I try and push on people is that you have to pray on this. Pray over it. Ask for God to make it a pure incense, a holy incense, that it drives out, anything negative or unclean at its very presence. So, like I said, I go through and I would incense it or sense it first. And then you want to start. I always try and go into the center of the house and then drive it outwards, because the last thing you want to do is take salt and sprinkle it around the outside of the house, because that leads to possibly trapping something in the house. And you really don't want that. They get very nasty, when they're trapped. And then I will go into each room. I'll take holy water, and I'll put the sign of the cross on every wall. I'll go to the windows, do the same thing, but I say a little prayer to where it's just, don't let anything negative enter the home. It can only use this window as an exit. And then I go to the lintels over the door, and I'll make the sign of the cross, and then I'll also do them on the threshold on each side of the threshold. And each room, after it's been censed, is that, and then the holy water. And with the holy water and reading, I also read scriptures. I love Psalms and Romans. Romans actually has a lot to do with faith. And Psalms gives you hope. So, hope and faith is your main weapons, and then I also have, some scriptures that I use, as far as like, Isaiah talking about, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I believe it's Luke, where he talks about, um, Jesus giving the power to cast out these spirits, things like that. So, anyways, and like I'm saying, save the worst room for last. By then, your confidence is really high. I have the gift I have. We were talking about the gentleman, that can do, and also to the priest that I know can do this over the phone. Well, we each have individual gifts, and mine is discernment. I like to say that I don't have a psychic bone in my body, but maybe it's just because I've been around this so much that I pick up on the little, the hair standing on end, or, the funny feelings or whatever. I'm not sure how to describe it. But and then I'll take salt, and it's exorcism salt. Also too, with the holy water, I mean, I usually take that to a priest during confession on Saturdays and just ask him to bless it. And I do the same thing to it, but it just seems like when you have a couple of, and I don't want to refer to myself as a holy person, but definitely someone dedicating their life would be, a holy individual. So you have several people that's praying over this, and that's what gives it the power to drive out these forces. Once that's done, I will take and use the rest of the salt. It doesn't matter what salt you have. Salt is, it's basically an element. It's the purest form, of mineral you can get. The sodium chloride and stuff, and whether it has iodine in it, it doesn't matter. But that's exorcism salt, because it's also prayed over the same way as you would the incense. And then I will take and just kind of fling it through the yard, and I'll do 360 degrees around the house, and any like if they have a gate in the backyard or whatever, I'll put a line of salt on that and say a small prayer, to whatever, angels or guides or, spirits or whatever that, they can only cross that line to leave, and you had, I, wait, I'll finish this up, but, and then also about the last part is that, I'll go to the four corners of the property, and I have blessed medallions, and I'll take a small spade and, dig up some earth and put it down in there. Those are also blessed. And that's pretty much the end of it. And a lot of people think that it happens, magically within a minute or two, but, you have to understand that this is spiritual warfare at its, finest, if you will. So I've found that it takes about 3 days, 2 to 3 days, for the, angels and things to come together and drive them out. You were asking me about being scared, something that wouldn't let me, I didn't want to venture out. Well, so the one situation was I was contacted by a young couple in Palestine, Texas, and they had gotten onto a spirit board, and had summoned the devil. I mean, literally, they asked, look, if you're the devil, come through. And they spelled out the name, and I use Google to look up. I also have a compendium of demons. You also have the keys of Solomon, the lesser keys or whatever, to identify certain demonic presences. But once I told this couple that I would take the case on that very night, again, 2 or 3 in the morning, dark 30, I woke up and there was something standing to the side of my bed. And it was like somebody drew a line down the center of me, and the side that was closest to this thing was absolutely cold. It was like icicles sticking out of me. The other side was warm. And then also too, I jumped up and started, I never, one of the things I tell people, if they're going to do paranormal investigations, don't investigate your own home. You won't like what you find. And absolutely do not use the SB7 spirit box and try and talk to these things to practice or whatever in your own home or on your property or whatever, because that's when you get these attachments, and you were saying something about why do people do this so much nowadays, and the thing about the church. Well, you go back to Exodus and Leviticus, and it tells you, basically that God cuts off anybody who talks to spirits of the dead. And actually, the Old Testament required them to be stoned. It would just infiltrate the entire clan, back then. And it's kind of the same with Islam. I've got a friend through Facebook that actually does exorcisms through Islam, and he recites the Holy Quran. So it's not just the Catholic Church has cornered the market. There are always other religions, and I mean, to be honest, and a lot of Christians won't want to believe this, but there are certain rituals in paganism that dealt with these negative spirits as well. I have worked with one witch, if you want, self-professed witch, but she said that she always did white magic or white witchcraft or whatever, but they have a whole different ritual as far as compared to Christianity.
What happened there?
He disappeared.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is crazy internet.
I know.
So can I ask you some questions? I mean,
Of course.
What's the most intense experience that you've had?
Well, I recently have just started getting into the paranormal. This is my second time on his podcast. And, I've always been interested in it. And so, I mean, I've just always been interested in it and learning more and learning the ins and outs of it.
Well, when you get to it like I did, basically, you start buying all the gadgets. I talked about the SLS camera. I had the Novelist, the 5B, the latest one. Oh, I just had to have all that. Bought a whole DVR that, and if you go to book, I have some of my old videotapes excuse me. It's called Paranormal Investigations of DFW, and you can see where some of those are there. It's just crazy. They're filled with these blinking. I hate using the word orbs because it just sounds so cliche.
Yeah.
But it was a light anomaly that would blink, and it went in a circular motion. I always make sure that the AC is turned off, and let the air kind of stagnate or whatever, so that you don't have those false. Uh, but yeah, and all the equipment. I probably bought like about $1,000 of equipment, and
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how much I sank into just showing up. Renting the house, for a night, and then letting others. Actually, if you're gonna do the paranormal investigations, I'm not talking about protection or whatever, but one of the ways that you can kind of get the money, like I did for the equipment, is to find a haunted place. And then, I was on meetup.com, and I put it out there for everyone in the paranormal community, hey, it's on this day and it costs X amount of dollars. And I would, I tried very hard not to overcharge because I was afraid nobody would show up.
Yeah.
But there's so much interest in this. And what little bit of money that I would eke out of it, I always put it back in the form of a device or something like that. Because that gives you a real sense of something is there. If something is on and off, it makes it much more tangible.
Yeah.
Wow. I see myself, Robert and Jenny, I think I am an unorthodox paranormal investigator for the simple fact I try to use techniques that most people aren't using today, and people don't know anything about. I don't use the cameras anymore. I stopped, I stopped using some of these big, expensive toys, like you're saying, that people buy. I just don't see that, me going out spending a large sum of money for that. I try to keep it simple. I try to keep it basic, and believe it or not, you'll get the same results as you do as you buying these high dollar equipment. Don't get me wrong. When I first started out, I went and bought like 8, maybe 9 cameras, and thought, hey, I got all these devices and all these equipment, and that's going to make me successful. But then I realized, I'm like, hey, this is not going to make me successful because I have all of this. What's going to make me successful is the actual knowledge of the paranormal. You know what I'm saying? That what makes you successful, the willing to learn and to understand what you're dealing with, and how you actually communicate with, the public. Those things right there will make you actual successful. Not the $400 camera, or the $900 Ovilus and all that stuff. It's this that makes you successful, and what you do.
Well, one of the main reasons why I bought the equipment was if a homeowner is wanting me to come in and investigate, I try and provide some kind of proof, video proof or whatever to them, just to show that they're not crazy. But another thing too about hosting events at a true haunted location or whatever, is when you were talking about learning how to form questions, that will elicit a response, a spirit or what have you, is that, I had all these people. I would always make it no more than 10. And usually it was 8, because anymore, it's just chaos. Everybody's stepping over everyone. But, you get a lot of fresh minds with that. And they will start asking questions that, I was like, oh, I never thought of it like that. So I start using those techniques in a lot of what I did, and it just kind of naturally progressed from there.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay, cool. Now, how often do you come to the Central Texas location, Robert?
When I'm called out, I have only been on one case in Austin with a student that was going to UT, a woman that was starting to hear voices. That's another thing too, is that with especially like the diabolical, is that you have to know a certain degree of psychology to be able to distinguish between schizoaffective disorder, ancestral generational curses. There's also something called soul ties, where someone has either in the past cursed your bloodline, or they have some form of attachment to you, and you have to actually break those soul ties. It's a very unholy thing that happens. So, that's it. There's just so much that comes into play.
Yeah.
And I will say that with that International School of Exorcism, it defines everything very well, and it gives you the tools to actually interrogate. Another thing too, besides the psychology aspect to it, you have a something called a DSM. It's like a diagnostic manual for codes or whatever, and it lists the certain attributes or whatever of certain mental disorders. And you also have what's called DID, dissociative identity disorder. You have to address those before. The way the Catholic Church tells everyone, or a priest, is that the priest has to be the last one that's convinced that it's demonic. So, you've got to rule out everything, first, before you can even entertain that thought, of well, do they need it? Because, you can do a lot of hurt by into their head that they're actually demon possessed, when, medication, will do just fine. I actually require people to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist first. Typically a psychiatrist, because they're able to prescribe medications, and goes in.
Hello.
Over.
Let's see here. Wow. Robert, how do you defer the difference between somebody that actually has a situation, or those that see you in your social media and just want to meet you? Because everybody has them. That particular person who's crazy about just a little loony, and you end up coming out, and they're like, "Oh, this is a big joke. I mean, I just want to meet you personally." What what do you say to people like that?
So I had, I'll have to admit this, is that after I came out on the Travel Channel, I had so many self-proclaimed mediums that contacted me saying, yeah, I'd love to work with you. I've got X amount of experience, you know, or whatever. And I devised a test, and it's going to be exposed now. So this is an exclusive. But I would tell the person that was claiming to be a medium, you know, I said, well, you know, since you are a medium, you know, I had a brother pass recently, just within the last year, through a boating accident. And I'm just wondering, you know, did he cross over? You know, does he approve of what I'm doing? And, you know, 9 times out, it's more like 9.9 times out of 10 that they would say, oh, yeah, he, you know, is looking down on you. And I see him, he's standing right behind you. He's smiling, you know, he's nodding his head, you know, and that tells me everything I need to know because I don't have a brother. And well, no, I have a brother, but he didn't pass, and certainly not in a boating accident. So, you know, you have to, you know, some of the ways that I try and discern whether it's demonic or not. You know, they've got several signs, such as unusual strength, speaking in a foreign tongue, that's called glossolalia. Let me see. Occult knowledge, such as the last thing your mom ever told you before she died. You know, let me see. Just aversion to holy objects. I use a blessed cross. I also have some blessed medallions. And what I'll do is I'll take a regular nickel and I'll take a blessed medallion and I'll ask them to close their eyes and hold their hands out. And I'll put one in each hand. Now, that doesn't definitively tell me, but, you know, if they choose the nickel, then, you know, yeah, it's probably not the case, but there has been a few what's called transient possessions. That's where the spirit kind of comes and goes, you know, so the person is not possessed all the time. And the only way that you can really verify this is by interviewing the family and getting their background as far as, you know, when, you know, when you know, they've been, you know, the demonic loves to it will mess up your relationships, make you feel utterly alone, and you know when you mess with the wrong one, they'll flood your mind with all kinds of vulgarities. So you know, as far as like myself, there was I did it. It wasn't quite an exorcism, but and I don't really want to say the name because I don't want to give it anymore. But it's considered one of the seven princes, and it's the demon of lust. And when I encountered this, I was kind of incredulous because they were saying, you know, oh yeah, it's a demon. This is his name or whatever, you know. And I was like, you know, that's the king of hell. Okay, I said it right there. If you look that up, Google it, you know, you'll find out what it is, but I'm not going to mention it. And so I kind of went in, you know, just thinking, yeah, it's, you know, this is all hype because they had a haunted house, you know, that they wanted people to pay money to come into. But yeah, I should have protected myself even more. Yeah, it messed things up for about 1.5 years. So it's taken me a while, you know, to get back to regular.
That is crazy. Now, a lot of people, depends on who you talk to. I'm pretty sure you've dealt with this and you've heard about this a little bit. I mean, you can make them, you can draw them. I mean, they come in different shapes, sizes, or colors. The Ouija board. What do you recommend to people about them? What would you say to people about them? Would you recommend them using them, but be cautious about it and know what the hell you're doing, or not just even have the damn thing in your house? Which one?
Well, people think that they can control the spirits by having a set opening and the using of the spirit board, but that's just it's bunk, because you don't control something that's ancient, that's 20 times wiser than you are. It's going to find an opening, it's going to find that chink in your armor, and it's going to it may not happen in the next 5 minutes. It may not happen that night or next week. But when you become vulnerable, when let's say your immune system is under attack, and you just start feeling down and depressed, that they love to get you. That's when you're in trouble, and that's when I usually get a call.
Wow. So, hey, you guys out there that's considered even thinking about using them, just leave it alone. If you don't know if you don't know what you're doing exactly, just leave it alone, because it's not really even worth it. Going through the bit of doing that. Jenny, you got any questions for this gentleman?
Well, let's see. I asked you that. What is one of the not scariest, but most memorable exorcisms you've done?
The first one I did, like I was talking about, I had no idea that, and I had apprenticed with Reverend Larson, for about a year. So, I pretty much knew what I was up against when I went in, and I'd seen some absolutely crazy things. There was one gentleman who was actually a pastor, and his personality was like flipping a light switch on and off. He'd go in between these two, and that's when you're possibly looking at dissociative identity disorder, but that wasn't the case. He had several other things that was going on, but just knowing that they can speak to you, that there's also a couple of other ways. If I think that it's an ancient spirit or whatever, I'll say, a few things in Latin or whatever, just to get, like there's quad nomen mihi est or quad nomen tibi est, which the first one is, what's my name? Second one is what's your name? And if they know what, most people don't even, have that knowledge. So if it answers me back and it tells me somebody's name, then, I'm really going to sit up and take notice on that.
Okay, cool. Let me see if I can put this here. All right. Now, this is where, at the end of the podcast, where you have the opportunity yourself, Mr. Robert, to ask me or to ask Miss Jenny any questions that you might have for us.
If you come across a case that sounds demonic, definitely give me a call. I would be interested in doing that. I feel like it's a calling, and also too, it's one thing that I have to point out is that whoever does this, they don't do it by their own power. It's not in their own nature that you just can't drive these things out. It has to come from God. It has to be the Spirit of God, Spirit of the Lord, really, that's casting these things out. Have you dealt with cases in the past that are blatantly demonic?
Actually, Mr. Robert, I have a case coming up this weekend, which is in Leander, Texas. Let me give you a little history on it, because myself, I'm really thinking that it's out of my territory. the lady was in a San Antonio hospital, and she got attached to something in that hospital, and she brought it home with her.
Mm.
Right.
And at this point, things have been turning over. The house is when she goes to work, the house is a total wreck. Now I don't know. I don't know if it's a poltergeist.
Yeah.
Or I really don't know until we get there. But the lady said that she's been hearing voices. And not only is she hearing voices, her bed is shaking. Also, it's getting to the point where it's attacking the kids. And
Mm.
I mean, I don't know if it's a poltergeist, a spirit, or a demon. I won't be able to let anybody know until we get there next Saturday night. And like and me myself, I would have made this a priority.
Yeah.
Been in immediately, but
Yeah. With kids. Mm.
but the individual who's leading the investigation can't get there until next weekend. And me myself, I didn't want to step over anybody's toes
Right.
or step over anybody's head to go ahead and see what's going on, because if it is something that's out of my league, mind you, most paranormal investigators are they come in to, like you say, Robert, to validate your claim, so nobody would think that you're crazy. Now, if it gets to a point where I can't handle it, that's where we can call certain individuals, you or Mr. Scott, to either come down or try to come in and figure this thing out. So no, I have not experienced anything like this. This would be my first one. And I, knowing that I know you now, and we've actually communicated on the podcast. And if Mr. Scott is not available, hey, would it be possible for you to come down and, to see what exactly is going on? Because the way it sounds like to me, I'm going in already over my head. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what I would recommend first off is trying to find out if she had actually coded or passed while she was in the hospital. I'm dealing with a gentleman right now that he had 5 heart attacks in rapid succession, and now he has 3 spirits that are attached to him, and one is she's just shouting vulgarities to him, and you just use your imagination. That's how bad it is. But something I've done before is have somebody, FaceTime me and really just hold the phone up, and walk through the house. And, I've got, my little book, that kind of gives me a procedure, to follow protocols. And then if, I'm big on being helping people the cheapest, that because nobody saves up for this stuff. There's insurance, and so, and there's somebody that used to investigate for me, and they got their little online minister's degree, and they're charging $500 for an exorcism, which I don't think they're capable of doing. But yeah, and I've been contacted at least twice. One was a woman from Canada. I don't recall. I think the other one was from Brownsville or along the coast. And there is somebody in the Brownsville area that is charging $4,000 and $5,000 to do an exorcism. And when they fly all the way out there, they're not, the guy disappears, so no, I think that if you're making any money off this, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Now, we don't live in a vacuum. you know, we have to have, you know, our expenses paid, but that's it. You know, I don't charge a flat fee of $500. You know, I'm like, okay, you know, my team will usually do like a 2-night investigation. And the first night is really just the investigation. And the second night is actually the blessing of the house. So, you know, and then also too, that's not the end of, you know, me contacting someone else. If they have a problem a week later or a month later or whatever, like this, there's a case in Houston where the son and daughter was still being attacked, and he would contact me almost daily, texting me and telling me, you know, and really they just need that reassurance and building up their confidence, you know, knowing that every time they say a prayer or whatever, it pushes that back. And, you know, there's already boundaries on their property once I leave. So all they've got to do is keep up the prayers, because, you know, these things can't stand you know, any holy words or anything like that. You know, they're absolutely rotten. There is no redeeming value in them. And they're out to, you know, like the Bible says, steal, kill, and destroy. You know, that's Satan's main objectives, you know. So no, he's not going to show you pity, because, you know, you know what you're doing when you open a spirit board. No, you think that they recognize those boundaries? Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
You know, and if it's more of a challenge, you know, there are some demonic entities that like that challenge. You know, they won't just attack a weak one, and they'll go full gusto, you know, and do a Rambo on you, basically. You know, and they destroy people's lives. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. Well, you know, Mr. Robert, it has been a pleasure having you on the show.
No, it's all mine.
I would love to do it again if it's all possible. Getting you and Mr. Scott together, because I really think that you guys can actually, man, I mean, spread a lot of information out there between the two to the world. You know, if that's possible, getting you two guys on the show together. You know, I'll leave that totally up to you. You know, and maybe later on after I'll say after the holidays, we can get together and do that if you like.
Sure.
But tell the world how to get a hold of you, brother.
So I have my phone number is on Facebook. I'm under Robert Martin. I think it does show up as Reverend Robert Martin. I don't like using titles. I think it's a waste of time, and it's kind of a holier than thou sort of thing. So, you know, I'm just an average Joe. But my phone number is 469-836-3868. And I have 2 emails. I have one that's pi.of.dfw, stands for Paranormal Investigations of Dfw @gmail.com. And the second one that I really monitor is Robert of Worth @gmail. And Worth is spelled with an E instead of an R. Just to be a little different or whatever, you know, unorthodox. Yeah, but those are the main ways to find me, and just find me on Facebook, and, you know, send me something on Messenger if you've got a problem that, you know, and sometimes all it takes is, you know, a simple prayer. Prayers are free. You know, I've never known anybody that would charge for just saying a prayer. You know, so yeah, I can do all that. I love doing that. Like I said, you know, that's my calling. So, you know, I if anybody needs help, you know, and like I was saying earlier, you know, no one plans for these things, so they sure don't save up for them. So I can't see charging other than really expenses, maybe a hotel stay and food, and gas. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Right. And if there's anybody out there that has something going on in their house, feel free to contact me. I am in the Central Texas area. When I mean Central Texas, because in the state of Texas, there's different regions that call themselves Central Texas. But the reason why we call it is because we're smack down in Central Texas. So, hey, feel free to go on my Facebook page, Messenger, hey, anything. I'm out there. You guys want to get a hold of me, feel free to do so. Like, I have a messenger. My phone number is on my Facebook page and all that stuff. Instagram, Twitch, no matter what, I'm out there. Just feel free to look me up, and the same thing with Miss Jenny. If you got anything, feel free, look her up. Mr. Robert, look him up. And you guys and the rest, if you do that, hey, the rest is history. I'm pretty sure we can handle every problem that we have for you. But Mr. Robert, I will get back with you pre-investigation. I will call you before we actually go out there, and I will definitely be able to do a live call with you, just to see, you can see what's going on around the house. Me and you be able to, communicate and talk, and just to let me know, hey, Terry, you are out of your league. Get out of there, and let me talk to the the owners of the house and see if we get you down here to actually do what you need to do and do what you do best.
I just want to add one more thing, and that is, if I'm not able to help, then I know a whole lot of people. I can get the Catholic Church involved. I have, a couple of connections there. I can also work within the Episcopalian Church. Actually, what I would do before I do an exorcism or a house blessing is the Episcopalian priest would say mass in the person's name. That's a very powerful tool that you got. So if I can't help, then I can definitely steer you, to someone that will.
Okay, cool. Hey guys, you if you need help, all the resources are there for you. Mr. Robert, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Let's do it again.
Sure.
Hey, you guys need any help out there, feel free to contact him. He just gave you all the info. With enough said, I am going to end this podcast because I know Mr. Robert probably got to go get something to eat. I am hungry myself. And Miss Jenny, stay on, and I can talk to you about this evening's podcast, which we are headed down to San Antonio, Texas. With enough said, Mr. Roberts, you have yourself a good day. Jenny, hang around for a minute. And, hey, you guys enjoy the rest of your evenings.
All right. Make sure to hit me up.
Yes, we sure will.